Hello, everyone, and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, and we're live in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. And coming up on the program, liberals hold on to power in Canada, and Trump reaches 100 days in office. We've got the latest on these and other stories, but we begin with the headlines. The Jammu and Kashmir government shuts down nearly 50 tourist sites and hiking trails, citing security concerns after last week's deadly terror attack in Pahalgam. The chief of Israel's security agency, Ronen Bar, says he will step down on June 15th after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tried to fire him last month over the October 7th terrorist attack. Remote regions in Greenland lose access to satellite services, including telephone and internet, a day after a massive power outage hit Spain, Portugal, and southwest France. Mexico agrees to send more water to the United States from their shared rivers under a 1944 treaty after President Donald Trump threatened tariffs and sanctions earlier this month. And at least 26 killed after two vehicles hit explosive devices in Nigeria's Borno state, which has been plagued by Islamist insurgency. We begin in Canada, where the Liberal Party has clinched a fourth consecutive term led by political newcomer and former central banker Mark Carney. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre conceded defeat, promising to work with the new government in defending Canada's sovereignty against external threats.
We know that change is needed, but change is hard to come by. It takes time. It takes work. And that's why we have to learn the lessons of tonight so that we can have an even better result the next time the Canadians decide the future for the country.
Addressing supporters in Ottawa, Canada's incumbent Prime Minister Carney celebrated the victory, calling it a new beginning for Canada, but warned of challenges days ahead.
You know, I chose to enter politics because I felt we needed big changes in this country. But big changes guided by strong Canadian values. As I stand before you this evening, humility in recognizing that, well, many have chosen to place your trust in me, trust in the Liberal Party. Millions of our fellow citizens preferred a different outcome.
Prime Minister Carney's win caps a remarkable political comeback for the Liberals, who were once considered destined for collapse. Now, after nearly a decade under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the party saw a dramatic turnaround under new leadership.
If you look just like in a few months ago, like Liberals were poised to lose, and now we won. So, excited and relieved at the same time.
However, one of the biggest factors shaping this election was the hostile stance taken by President Donald Trump. His unceasing threats to annex Canada as the 51st state, coupled with economic coercion through tariffs, triggered widespread anger among Canadians.
Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade, anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity for a country for decades, is over.
Now, beyond dealing with the Trump administration, Carney also signaled a fresh approach to Canada's strained ties with India. And without exactly directly addressing the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, Prime Minister Carney did suggest there is a path forward to repair relations based on mutual respect. Relations between Ottawa and New Delhi hit a low point after Trudeau's government accused India of involvement in Nijjar's murder back in June of 2023. The allegation sparked a major diplomatic crisis, with India strongly rejecting the charges and calling them absurd and motivated. So as Prime Minister Carney steps into his new role with a country eager for steady leadership, Canadians and the world are watching closely, because with threats looming from old friends and bridges waiting to be rebuilt, the real test of Mark Carney's leadership is only just beginning. President Donald Trump's 100 days in office have been full of clashes, cuts, and chaos. He sent hundreds of illegal immigrants to foreign prisons, announced sweeping tariffs disrupting the global markets, feuded with America's oldest allies, and even waged wars on university students and transgenders. Donald Trump has certainly delivered one of the most turbulent 100 days of any presidency in American history. But has he managed to deliver on his promises to his voters? Here's our report with more.
100 days. That's all it takes for a U.S. president to set the tone for the rest of his or her term.
This was much better.
Donald Trump returned to the White House with many bold claims. But has he been able to deliver on his promises? Let's find out. During his campaign, Trump was laser-focused on immigration. He wanted illegal aliens out of the country. And while he has launched a massive deportation campaign, data suggests monthly deportations under the former Biden administration were higher. The commander-in-chief also signed an executive order to end the birthright citizenship. However, it was immediately challenged, with the issue now headed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Universities across the United States suffered a huge blow when Trump's team suddenly revoked hundreds of foreign student visas and froze billions of dollars in grants. The reason? These universities didn't agree to the president's demands. He wanted to curb diversity, equity, and inclusivity initiatives and stop campus protests over Israel's war on Gaza. While Columbia caved, Harvard sued his administration. Several foreign students have also filed a lawsuit against him. Trump promised to end the Ukraine war within 24 hours of returning to the White House. But 100 days later, the conflict is still raging. Next, the nuclear program deal with Iran. Talks between Washington and Tehran are on. But a nuclear deal isn't happening overnight. Now to the Houthis. Since 15th March, the US has struck the Houthis in Yemen repeatedly. But the American strikes haven't deterred the Iranian proxy group, who have continued to target vessels in the Red Sea and even launched a ballistic missile on Israel. Before taking office, Trump promised to retaliate against countries whom he accused of ripping off the United States. But his tariffs on trading partners have roiled investors and wiped out trillions of dollars in stock market value. He also put a baseline tariff of 145% on China, starting a trade war. Trump is battling not just American allies and rogue states, but also transgenders. He has banned transgender athletes from female sports. He has repealed Biden-era policies that cleared a way for trans people to serve openly in the military. The State Department has blocked new passports for trans and non-binary people, and his administration only recognizes two genders, male and female. So as Trump's presidential honeymoon ends, the 78-year-old has kept some of his campaign promises while rattling the markets and America's allies. But the thing that is missing from his resume in his first 100 days in office is what he wants most, a clear win.
What they've done is just crazy in so many other ways.
And now to the Middle East, where a U.S. Navy F-18 fighter jet has been lost at sea after falling overboard from the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier. The incident occurred yesterday when the aircraft was being towed inside the hangar bay. And according to a statement from the Navy, the towing crew lost control of the aircraft during the operation, leading to both the $60 million fighter jet and its tow tractor plunging into the Red Sea. All personnel aboard the Truman were accounted for, though one sailor sustained a minor injury. Now, while the cause of the accident is still under investigation, initial reports suggest that the Truman may have made a sharp maneuver to evade incoming fire from Yemen's Houthis at the time of the incident.
You typically do a series of alternating 30 to 40-degree turns. Each takes about 30 seconds each way, but the turns start sharply. It is like riding in a zigzagging car.
Now, this is not the first major incident involving the Truman in recent months. Back in February, the carrier collided with a merchant ship near Egypt, and in December of 2024, another F-18 Hornet from the Truman was accidentally shot down by its own escort ship in a case of mistaken identity. However, the challenges facing U.S. forces in the region have extended beyond manned aircraft. Since mid-March, the U.S. has lost 7 MQ-9 Reaper drones in operations over and around Yemen. Each drone is valued at approximately $30 million and serves critical roles in reconnaissance and precision strikes. The circumstances surrounding the losses of these drones have not been fully detailed, but the incidents occurred during a period of intensified U.S. military action against the Houthis.
This is also not an endless offensive. This is not about regime change in the Middle East. This is about putting American interests first. The Houthis could stop this tomorrow if they said, we're going to stop shooting at your people. But they've clearly chosen not to do that. And so this campaign will be relentless to degrade their capability and to open up shipping lanes in the region and to defend our homeland.
And as the situation remains tense, the Houthis' continued retaliation is inevitable until Israel halts its offensive in Gaza. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy continues to bolster its presence in the area, extending Truman's deployment and dispatching additional warships and aircraft. And as the sea swallows another fighter jet and drones continue to vanish in the skies above Yemen, questions remain not just about what happened, but what might come next. And now moving to the war in Europe, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of deceiving President Donald Trump. This after Vladimir Putin announced a surprise ceasefire for 3 days from May 8th to May 10th. The dates would coincide with Putin's lavish celebrations to mark the victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. Now, during his evening address on Monday, President Zelensky said Russia's offer of a temporary truce is just another attempt to manipulate the world.
As early as March 11th, we responded positively to the American proposal for a complete ceasefire. We also made our own proposal bilaterally to Russia to halt strikes at least on civilian targets, at the very least on them. We also proposed to establish a complete ceasefire and extend it for 30 days over Easter. Russia has consistently rejected all of this and manipulated the world, trying to deceive the United States.
The Ukrainian leader once again called for an immediate ceasefire for at least 30 days.
The fire must be stopped not just for a few days, only to resume killing afterward. An immediate, complete, and unconditional ceasefire, for at least 30 days to ensure it is guaranteed and reliable, is what can provide the foundation for real diplomacy.
President Zelensky's comments come at a time when President Trump has upped his criticism on Putin. In fact, on Sunday, President Trump said he was very disappointed with Russian strikes targeting civilian areas in Ukraine. And the remarks came soon after meeting President Zelensky at Pope Francis' funeral at the Vatican.
I think the meeting went well. We'll see what happens over the next few days. We'll probably learn a lot. I was very disappointed that missiles were flying by Russia, but that missiles were flying. Very disappointing. We'll see how it goes.
President Trump has also stepped up his pressure on Putin and asked him to stop shooting and sign a ceasefire agreement. However, he believed President Zelensky was ready to give up Crimea to Russia as negotiations entered what Washington calls a critical week on Monday. Now, the White House has said that without significant progress, President Trump could very well abandon the negotiations altogether. The White House has also indicated giving the peace talks a deadline of just 2 weeks. But as President Trump's frustration with both Putin and Zelensky grows, the war still rages on. In fact, on Tuesday, both sides fired dozens of drones at each other, killing a child in Ukraine and 2 people in Russia. And with the fighting continuing, all eyes are now on President Trump, who is yet to reveal the details of his peace plan to end the 3-year-long deadly war. And today we end inside the White House. An event which was supposed to be a celebration for the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles turned into a mini roast by President Trump and his target, none other than pop icon Taylor Swift. While praising the Eagles on the White House lawn, Trump smirked, quote, "I was there along with Taylor Swift. How did that work out?" End quote. Because if there's one thing Trump loves more than football, it's throwing shade. Here's more from the White House.
When President Donald Trump isn't busy imposing tariffs or making deportation plans, he's apparently keeping score on who cheered louder at the Super Bowl, him or Taylor Swift. Spoiler alert, he thinks he won, and he's not done rubbing it in. Hosting the Philadelphia Eagles at the White House after their 2025 Super Bowl win over the Kansas City Chiefs, Trump took a moment to sneak in a jab at pop titan Taylor Swift at the South Lawn. She attended the game to support her boyfriend and Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. I watched in person, Trump said, pausing dramatically. I was there along with Taylor Swift. How did that work out?
I watched in person. I was there along with Taylor Swift. How did that work out?
Cue the MAGA chuckles and anti-Swift snark.
The Eagles scored a touchdown.
For the unversed, Donald Trump was the first sitting US president to ever attend a Super Bowl game in person. The shade comes after Swift endorsed Trump's political nemesis Kamala Harris during the 2024 presidential campaign. Apparently, Swift's Super Bowl presence, plus her visible attempt at hand-holding democracy, was too much for the US president to ignore. He also shared a clip of her getting booed at the stadium, declaring gleefully that MAGA is very unforgiving. Despite Trump's jabs at Taylor Swift, it's worth noting that initially both he and Swift were actually rooting for the same team. In a pre-game interview, Trump admitted he was reluctant to pick a side and hoped to watch a great game. Still, he ended up predicting a Chiefs victory, heaping praise on quarterback Patrick Mahomes and his wife Brittany, who he noted was a MAGA fan and a great person. However, this isn't the first time Trump has found himself in a passive-aggressive tango with Taylor Swift. Back in 2024, Swift labeled herself as a childless cat lady while endorsing Kamala Harris on Instagram. She had then stated that she wanted a country led by calm and not chaos. Trump's reply, "She will probably pay a price in the marketplace." Unclear what that means, but if album sales are any indication, that's not likely. Of course, the internet couldn't let it slide. Trump fans claimed Swift was booed out of the stadium, while Swifties hit back with enough sparkle to blind a bald eagle. Even the Eagles' running back Saquon Barkley chimed in, defending the Grammy Queen. "I don't get why she got hate," he said in an interview. So what have we learned? Trump's grudge game is alive and well. Swift's high notes still haunt him. And in the battle of Eagles versus Chiefs, it looks like the real war was waged off the field. When you're Taylor Swift, even your stadium boos echo louder than campaign speeches. And when you're Donald Trump, apparently not even a touchdown is complete without a diss track.
That's First Post America for this Tuesday, April 29th. I'm Eric Ham, signing off from our studios here in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in.
Greeting you with aloha and namaste.
I love India.
Presence, occupation of a territory